Next, we are at the final section. Here I basically want to argue my sort of positive argument in favor of thinking that animal experimentation is wrong. Up until now, I've been reviewing objections and reviewing techniques to think about objections. And now I just want to give my basic reasons to think that animal experimentation is often, usually, maybe nearly always wrong, when at least it's non-therapeutic, doesn't benefit animals, and they don't agree to it. Basically, to get to the argument, let's go back to the question from before. Would it be wrong to experiment on you or any other conscious sentient human being in ways animals are experimented on? I'm going to say most people are going to say, yeah, it would be wrong. If you treated me like an animal is treated in experimentation, that would be profoundly wrong. Well, the question is, why? Here's one answer. I'm wrong to treat that way because I'm biologically human. Well, remember long ago at the beginning, we had these examples of experiments with cadavers and human cells. I suspect that you would think that, well, it wasn't wrong to do those types of experiments, even though those cadavers and cells were biologically human. So that can't quite be it. And we can also ask, why is it wrong to harm humans when it is? It doesn't seem to be just because we're biologically human. So here's another answer. Why would it be wrong to experiment on you? Might be that, well, you'd be wrong to experiment on because you're a person. Well, that is a good answer, but to evaluate it, we need to ask what you mean by person. And whatever your answer is, we'd have to ask, well, okay, why is it wrong to harm persons? And it might be that some answers there would be suggestive for animals. One theory about what persons is that persons are beings with personalities. Why are you a person? Well, basically because you're conscious, you're feeling, you got thoughts, awareness, and that's all bound up in a personality. So earlier I mentioned comatose individuals, permanently comatose individuals. Sometimes we think it's okay to let them die. And we might think it's okay because, sadly, their personhood has ended. They're still alive. They're still human. They're still a human being even. But since they've lost their consciousness, awareness, and so forth, their personhood is gone. And so it's okay to let them die. So if you take that idea about what persons are, you might actually think, well, seems like some animals might be persons. So let's come back to that in a moment. So I think the best answer for why it would be wrong to experiment on you and me and us in the ways that animals are experimented on, there's no one particular best answer, but it basically comes down to this: because these experiments would harm you. They would be bad for you. They would make your life worse from your own point of view. They would basically reduce your value to what others can get from you. It wouldn't be in your interest. You wouldn't agree to it. There's all sorts of reasons, and all sorts of good reasons that, they're all a little different, but they all kind of overlap and reinforce each other. And so you can take that answer and generalize. Well, any being that has a mental life such that they can be harmed, things can go better and worse for them from their own point of view, and so on, is wrong to harm like that. Well, many animals are beings like that. So many animals are wrong to harm. So much animal experimentation is wrong. So, and again, the strategy is, think about, why are we wrong? Why would we be wrong to experiment on these ways? The reason seems to suggest that animals would be wrong to harm also. This type of general argument is made by many particular philosophers, and I posted some links to some of the most popular books and articles that argue in these sorts of ways. Those are available on the lecture page. And let me just quickly point to a couple. So there's a famous book by Peter Singer called Animal Liberation. And he argues that the setup of his book is he thinks about why racism and sexism are wrong, and argues that the reasons why racism and sexism are wrong suggest that a type of discrimination against animals called speciesism is wrong also. And if speciesism is wrong, then animal research would be wrong. So he kind of takes the strategy that I do of, well, start where we're confident and think about why that's so and see where it leads. Another famous author, Tom Reagan, wrote The Case for Animal Rights. And I think my presentation is very similar to his. He thinks about why we have rights, why we have basic moral or natural rights. Why do you have a right to your body? Why do you have a right to your life? He thinks it's not because you're a rational being, because that would suggest that babies and mentally challenged people don't have rights. So he suggests it's because we are subjects of lives. Basically, we're conscious, feeling, aware, and our lives can go better and worse for us from our own points of view. He says, well, that's why we have rights. Then many animals would have rights too, since they are also subjects of lives. And there are many other arguments like this. So for some further reading on this exact issue of animal research, Tom Regan has a really good article called Empty Cages, Animal Rights and Vivisection. That'll be available in the lecture page. Here is one book on the topic, The Ethics of Animal Research, Exploring the Controversy, and a link to that will be on the lecture page also. In sum, I've argued that most animal research is wrong. Most research doesn't benefit animals. It is not intended to benefit them. It is called non-therapeutic. And I've argued it's wrong because, well, if we think about why comparable research would be done to us, that is wrong. And if we figure out why that's wrong, we seem to see that the explanations why it's wrong apply to many animals also. In the meantime, I've responded to many objections along the way, basically, well, but there's benefits for us, there's no alternatives, it's necessary. I argued those objections aren't good. And so at the very least, I hope you now better understand these issues, the arguments on both sides, and more importantly, how to think about them a little better so that you can engage more resources and arguments on this in the future. Thank you.